High in the southern dark of a summer night, there is a single red ember that has been burning above this world for longer than the word for fire. You have seen it without knowing its name, low over the horizon when the air is warm, where the constellation of the Scorpion arches its long curved body across the sky. One star glows with a colour the others do not have. Not the cold white of most stars, but a deep and steady red, the red of a coal an hour after the flame has gone, the red that the planet Mars wears when it drifts near. It is so vast that, set where the sun now sits, it would swallow the ground beneath you, and 3 more worlds besides, and reach its outer edge into the field of broken stone past the orbit of Mars. Its light tonight set out around the time that ships first carried gunpowder across the sea, and it is one of a small handful of stars in all the heavens that is quietly nearing the end of its life. What is it like for a star to grow old and red and enormous, and to go on glowing all the while, asking nothing of the dark around it? You do not need to hold any of this. There is nothing to study here, nothing to memorize, nothing to carry into the morning. Let the facts move through you the way warm air moves through an open window on a summer night, touching you for a moment, then passing on, leaving no weight behind. Some of these wonders will follow you down into sleep, and some will be gone before you wake, and either way is exactly as it should be. This is the gift of looking at something so far away. It has already outlasted everyone who ever wondered at it, and it will go on glowing whether you remember a single word of this or not. So let the mind loosen. Let the eyes close when they want to. That red star is in no hurry at all, and tonight, neither are you. Begin with the colour, because the colour is the first thing anyone ever noticed. Most of the bright stars you can see burn white or faintly blue, the colour of something very hot. This one is red, and red is the colour of something cooler at least, by the strange measure of stars. Its surface glows at around 3,500 degrees, only a little more than half the heat at the surface of the sun, and at that lower temperature the light that pours out of it is shifted toward the long, warm end of what the eye can see. So it hangs there in the summer sky not as a white spark but as a coal, a single warm coal among a field of cold ones, and that warmth is real. It is the actual temperature of a real surface written directly into a colour you can see with nothing but your own 2 eyes. The ancients saw that colour too, and it reminded them of one thing above all. When the planet Mars wanders through that part of the sky, as it does every couple of years, the 2 of them sit near each other low in the south. The planet and the star, both burning the same rusty red, nearly the same brightness, so alike that even careful watchers have mistaken one for the other. The Greeks gave the star a name born from exactly that resemblance. They called it Antares, which is most often read as the rival of Ares, Ares being their name for the god of war, the god the Romans called Mars, the rival of Mars, a star named not for what it is but for the planet it could be mistaken for, on a warm night near the edge of the world. There is a quiet humility in that. Mars is a small dry world a few light minutes away, a stone you could cross in a year of falling. Antares is a sun beyond imagining, hundreds of light years off, large enough to hold 1,000,000 suns inside it. And yet to the unaided eye, from the floor of this one small planet, they are twins, 2 red lights, side by side, indistinguishable. The naming did not get the truth of it, it got the feeling of it, and the feeling has lasted thousands of years longer than anyone who first looked up and felt it. Among all the stars the eye can find in the whole of the dark, this one ranks, on average, about 15th in brightness, high in that small company of the truly bright, the few dozen lights that anchor the patterns of every sky. There are brighter stars and famous ones scattered around the heavens, but only a handful outshine the red heart of the Scorpion, and none of them wears its particular deep colour. It is the brightest thing by far in its own constellation, the unmistakable lamp by which the whole long creature is found. Sweep your eye across the southern summer sky, and it is the red one your gaze will catch first and hold longest, the one bright enough to read a season by, the one that does not flicker into anonymity among the lesser sparks. Astronomers give it a short label that carries its whole nature folded inside a few letters and numbers. They call it a star of type M, the coolest, reddest class in the long ladder of stellar colours, which runs from the fierce blue-white at one end down through white and yellow and orange to the deep red of M at the other. And to that letter they add a mark that means supergiant, the rare designation reserved for the most swollen and luminous of stars. So in a small string of symbols sits the entire portrait. Cool, red, vast, luminous, aging. A whole life and a whole appearance, written shorter than a single word, decipherable to anyone who knows the alphabet of the stars. On either side of the red lamp sit two fainter stars near neighbours in the picture that mark the breadth of the creature's body across its middle. They are dimmer companions to the eye, sitting just above and below the great red one, and together the three form a short line that the oldest watchers use to find the heart unerringly. The eye learns the pattern quickly, the bright red centre, and the two pale stars flanking it, like a coal set between two cooler stones. Once the pattern is learned, it is never lost, and the heart of the creature can be found in an instant on any summer night, by anyone who has met it even once. What strikes almost everyone who finds it for the first time is simply that the colour is real and visible, with no instrument at all. So much of what is known about the cosmos can only be seen through great telescopes or read off careful instruments, far beyond the reach of the naked eye. But the redness of this star is there for anyone, on any clear night, free and immediate. A genuine astronomical fact, the actual temperature of a real and distant surface, delivered straight to the eye of a child lying in the grass. There is something quietly democratic about that. The largest telescope and the youngest pair of eyes see the same red coal, and both see it true. That star sits at the centre of a shape that almost every culture has seen as a creature with a curved tail and a sting. The constellation is the Scorpion, low and long across the southern sky, and Antares marks the place where its heart would beat. Many of the oldest sky watchers saw it exactly that way. In the records of ancient Mesopotamia, thousands of years before the Greeks, the same red star was already called the heart of the Scorpion, the breast of the creature, the bright living centre of a body drawn in dimmer stars. So the name the eye gives it follows the body, the red one is the heart. And it has held that place in the creature for as long as there have been people writing down the names of the things they saw at night. A heart that glows red is a fitting image, because this star is alive in a way the steady white stars are not. Its brightness is not fixed. Over months and years it swells and fades, dims and brightens again, never by very much, but enough that careful eyes across the centuries noticed it never quite held still. It is what astronomers call a variable star, a star whose light visibly changes, and the change in Antares is slow and irregular, a long uneven breathing rather than a clean rhythm. The whole vast body of it pulses, expanding and contracting over time, and as it does, the light it sends across 600 years of empty space brightens and softens, like the glow of an ember stirred by a breath you cannot feel. Think for a moment about how far that light has come to reach you. Antares lies roughly 550 light-years away, which means the light entering your eye tonight left that red surface about 5.5 centuries ago. It crossed the dark all that time, through the years of sailing ships and the building of the great cathedrals, through every life that has ever been lived in all that span, travelling at the only speed light knows, and arriving only now, only tonight, at the dark window where you happen to be. The star you're looking at is not the star as it is. It is the star as it was, a long letter sent before anyone you've ever heard of was born, delivered at last to no one in particular, to anyone who happens to look up. And the thing that letter describes is almost impossibly large. If you could lift Antares out of the sky and set it down where the sun is, its glowing surface would not stop at the sun's edge. It would swallow the orbit of Mercury and Venus and the Earth and Mars and keep going, its outer surface coming to rest somewhere out in the asteroid belt, that wide ring of tumbling stone between Mars and Jupiter. Everything you have ever stood on, every place anyone has ever travelled, the whole small theatre of this world's history would lie deep inside that single red star with room to spare. It is one of the largest stars the human eye can see without any instrument at all, and it would hold our entire inner solar system inside its own body like a stone dropped into a pond. That size has a number, though the number is hard to feel. Antares is roughly 700 times wider than the Sun across its middle, not 700 times heavier and not 700 times brighter, 700 times wider, edge to edge, so that if the Sun were a marble, this star would be a sphere taller than a tall house. You could line up 700 suns in a row across its face. And yet, for all that breadth, it is made of so little, spread so thin, that the comparison hides a stranger truth waiting a little further on. For now it is enough to hold the simple shape of it, a coal red sphere so wide that worlds could orbit inside the space it fills, glowing softly at the scorpion's breast, 5.5 centuries away. Here is the strangeness that breadth conceals. A star that wide, you might think, must be unthinkably heavy, but Antares carries only somewhere between 12 and 18 times the mass of the Sun, not 700 times the mass, a dozen or so. All that enormous volume is filled with matter so rare and so distended that, on average, the gas inside Antares is thinner than the air in this room. Thinner, in much of it, than the best vacuum that careful hands have ever made in a laboratory on Earth. It is less a solid burning ball than a vast, faint, glowing cloud the size of a solar system, held together by its own slow gravity, luminous and immense, and almost weightless for its size. A whole sun's worth of substance, smeared across a volume large enough to lose the planets in. That thinness comes from what is happening at the heart of it. Long ago, when Antares was young, it burned the way the Sun burns now, fusing hydrogen quietly in a small, dense core. But it was born far heavier than the Sun, and the heavier a star is, the faster it spends itself. Antares raced through its youth in a few million years, a blink against the Sun's long 10 billion year life. And when the hydrogen at its core ran low, the core drew inward and grew hotter, and the outer layers in answer swelled enormously outward. That is the bargain a dying star strikes with itself. The centre contracts and heats, the surface balloons and cools. The star becomes a supergiant, vast, distended, red, its outermost gas pushed so far from the burning core that it has cooled to that warm coal glow you can see from here. So the redness and the bigness are the same story told twice. The star is red because its surface is cool, and its surface is cool because the star is so swollen that the outer skin of it lies impossibly far from the fire within. A red supergiant is a star turned partly inside out by age, its heat buried deep, its bulk thrown wide, its colour shifted toward the long, warm end of the rainbow, precisely because it has grown so large. Everything you see when you look at Antares, the colour, the size, the slow, uneven pulse, is the visible signature of a star in the late chapters of its life, doing in slow grandeur what every star of its kind eventually does. And it is bright far out of proportion to its warmth. Though each patch of its cool surface glows more softly than a patch of the sun would, there is so much surface, such an enormous glowing area, that the total light pouring off it is staggering. Antares shines with the light of something on the order of 10,000 suns and more, perhaps far more, all of it streaming outward in every direction at once across the dark. Much of that light is poured out not as the visible red you see, but as invisible warmth, infrared, the deep, low note of the spectrum. If your eyes could drink in that hidden warmth as easily as they drink in red, Antares would blaze in the summer sky as one of the most overwhelming lights in all the heavens, a furnace wearing the gentle face of a single red star. Let your gaze rest on that single point of red, and consider that it is not, in truth, a single thing at all. Antares has a companion. Circling the great red supergiant far out and faint is a second star, smaller, hotter, a clean blue-white spark called Antares B. To the naked eye, it is utterly lost in the glare of its enormous neighbour. The two blur into one red point, but through a telescope in steady air, the smaller star can sometimes be teased out of the brightness beside it, a cool sapphire glint riding close to the great ember. The red giant and the blue companion swing slowly around their shared centre, across a span of well over 1,000 years, far too slow for any single human watcher to ever see the pair complete even a small arc of their long, patient circle. The contrast between those two stars is one of the gentlest in the sky. The companion, Antares B, is a hot young main-sequence star, burning blue-white at a surface far fiercer than its giant neighbours, the kind of clean, brilliant heat the great red star itself wore in its own youth, long ago. So in that one point of light, looked at closely, two ages of a star sit side by side, the blue fire of stellar youth and the red glow of stellar old age, bound together, circling each other in the dark. The smaller star is sometimes said to shine with a faintly green or emerald tint when seen beside the overwhelming red, a trick of the eye and the contrast, the mind painting the small bright neighbour in the opposite colour to its huge red partner. For most of human history, no one knew that second star was there. To every ancient watcher who named the red heart of that long-curved creature, Antares was simply one light. The companion was only found when telescopes grew sharp enough to split the glare, and even then it was glimpsed almost by accident. Once, memorably, when the moon passed in front of Antares and, for an instant as the red star vanished behind the lunar edge, the small blue companion lingered alone in view, a single sapphire point hanging where a moment before there had been a great red one. The dark, it turns out, is full of these hidden pairings, single lights that are secretly two, companionships too far away and too faint to see, holding together across the centuries whether anyone notices them or not. Trace the body of the scorpion down from the red heart, and it curves into one of the most graceful shapes in all the sky, a long sweeping hook that ends in a raised sting. Far across the warm waters of the Pacific, the skywatchers who steered by the stars saw that very curve, and read it not as a scorpion at all, but as a great fish hook, the hook of a hero who once pulled islands up out of the sea. The red star and the bright stars of the hook trace between them exactly the shape of a hook a fisherman would know, the long shank, the bend, the barb at the end. Two cultures, oceans apart, looked at the same arc of stars and saw a scorpion and a fishhook. Both names fit the shape perfectly, and both have been carried down for ages by people who never met. At the very tip of that hook, where the sting would strike, sit two bright stars set close together, so near each other in the sky that they almost touch. They mark the point of the sting, and the brighter of the two carries an old name that means simply the sting itself. Together they make a tight, bright pair at the end of the long tail, the sharpest point of the whole figure, and to the eye they look like a single, dazzling double knot of light, the finishing flourish on the creature's curving form. Find the red heart, follow the body down and around through its long, graceful bend, and you arrive at last at those two close stars, the sting raised and ready, drawn in light across the bottom of the southern sky. All along that curving tail, hidden in the rich star fields, lie some of the loveliest small treasures the night has to offer. Near the sting hang two open clusters, loose, sparkling gatherings of young stars, dozens of them each, born together from the same cloud and still travelling together through space like siblings who have not yet drifted apart. One of them, through binoculars, scatters its brightest stars into the shape of a butterfly with open wings. The other is a looser, broader spray of suns, bright enough that a sharp eye can catch it without any instrument at all, a faint patch of light that the astronomers of antiquity already knew and recorded. They are families of stars, still close, still bright, still young, the very thing the red heart once was long ago, before its own siblings drifted off into the dark. Tucked into the same region, near the lower curve of the body, glimmers another knot of brilliant young stars so tight and so radiant that, to a casual glance, it can be mistaken for the head of a faint comet hanging in the sky, a small bright smudge with a trailing tail of dimmer stars beside it. It is no comet, of course. It is a cluster of hot blue-white suns, all newly born, blazing together in a corner of the Scorpion. The whole region around the great red star, it turns out, is dense with stellar youth. Clusters, nurseries, and bright young suns scattered through the curving body of the creature, the old red heart presiding over a whole neighbourhood of the freshly born. The moon, in fact, has a special relationship with this particular star, and it is one of the quiet delights of the southern sky. Antares sits very close to the line that the sun, moon and planets all travel along, the path called the ecliptic, the great circle the wanderers of the sky all share. It is one of only a small handful of truly bright stars that lie near enough to that path for the moon to actually pass in front of them. So every so often, on its monthly circuit, the moon glides directly over Antares and blots it out, the bright red star simply winking off behind the dark limb of the moon, then, a while later, reappearing on the other side as if relit. Astronomers call this an occultation, and for Antares it comes in long cycles, clusters of such passings spread across years, governed by the slow 18-year wobble of the moon's own tilted path. There is something restful in that small, exact choreography. The nearest object in the sky, the moon, passing in front of one of the most distant points the eye can hold, the two of them lined up for a few minutes from this one vantage on Earth. 250,000 miles and 5.5 centuries of light, briefly in a single line. The moon covers the star, and for those minutes the red heart of the summer south goes dark, hidden behind a world close enough to touch with a glance. Then the moon moves on, and the red ember returns to its place, unchanged, as if it had only blinked. Around that red heart, in the real depths beyond it, lies one of the most beautiful regions in the entire night sky, though it takes a long exposure on a camera or a very dark and patient sky to see it as it truly is. Antares is wrapped in a glowing cloud of its own light. The great star throws out so much radiance and loses so much of its own outer gas to space that the dust drifting near it is lit up from within, and it shines back in a soft, smouldering glow. Most such reflection clouds in the heavens glow blue, because dust scatters blue light most readily, the same way the daytime sky is blue. But the cloud around Antares glows a rare and luminous golden yellow, lit by the warm red light of the cool giant itself, a gold so unusual among the cosmos's clouds that it is one of the few of its kind known. That golden haze is only one thread of a far larger tapestry. Antares sits at the edge of one of the richest, most colourful cloud complexes in the whole sky, a sprawling region of gas and dust where soft reds and ambers and deep blues all mingle, where dark rivers of dust wind between glowing veils, and where, hidden inside, new stars are quietly being born. It is a stellar nursery, a place where the raw material of the cosmos is gathering itself into fresh suns even now. So the old red giant near the end of its life hangs at the border of a region where life of its own kind is just beginning, the dying and the being born, sharing one corner of the southern sky, painted in colours most eyes never get to see. That whole stretch of sky around the Scorpion happens to look out across the richest part of our own galaxy. Beyond the red star, in the same direction but unimaginably further on, lies the crowded heart of the Milky Way, the dense central swarm of stars around which the whole great pinwheel slowly turns. So when you look toward Antares from a truly dark place, you are looking along the thick band of the Milky Way itself, into a sky so crowded with distant suns that they blur into a soft, luminous river spilling across the dark. The Scorpion lies against the brightest reach of that river, its red heart set like a jewel on the densest field of stars the night sky holds. Of all the directions you could gaze, This is the one that looks deepest into the body of our own galaxy. Threaded through that bright river are long dark rifts where no stars seem to shine, not empty windows onto the void beyond, but vast cool clouds of dust drifting between us and the glow, thick enough to block the light of everything behind them. The eye reads them as rivers of darkness winding through the luminous band, channels of black against the soft white glow. They are some of the nearest of all such clouds, great drifting banks of the raw stuff of stars, and they hang in the same quarter of the sky as the red giant. The dark and the bright are woven together there, glowing star fields shot through with black lanes of dust, the whole scene a study in light and its absence painted across the southern summer night. The colourful cloud complex wrapped around the red star is, as it happens, one of the very nearest stellar nurseries to our own sun, one of the closest places in all the galaxy where new stars are presently being born. That makes it a kind of window onto our own beginnings. The sun too was born this way, long ago, condensing out of just such a cloud, lit by just such young stars wrapped in just such veils of glowing gas and dust. To look at the nursery near Antares is to look at a living portrait of the kind of place the sun once was, 4.5 billion years ago. The same slow gathering, the same soft glow, the same quiet birth of suns out of cold and drifting matter. The beginning of our own star mirrored in a cradle still at work just beyond the red giant. Even the ancient globular swarm that shares that patch of sky is, despite its vast distance, among the closest of its kind to us, one of the nearest of those great old star cities to the sun. Most globular clusters hang far out in the lonely halo around the galaxy, tens of thousands of light years off, dim and remote. This one is comparatively near enough that a modest telescope begins to resolve its outermost stars into individual points, a rare chance to look into the ancient crowded heart of one of these primordial swarms. So in one small region of the summer sky lie a near nursery of newborn stars and a near city of the most ancient ones, the youngest and the oldest of the galaxy's structures, side by side along a single line of sight. Tucked into that same patch of sky, not far from Antares as the eye measures it, glimmers one of the closest of all the great globular clusters, a tight ancient swarm of tens of thousands of stars, packed into a glowing ball that hangs in the dark like a dropped handful of sugar caught in lamplight. Through even a modest telescope it begins to dissolve into individual sparks, a city of suns far older than Antares, far older than the sun, knotted together by their own gravity since almost the beginning of the galaxy. It only appears to lie near the red star. In truth, it floats thousands of light years further back, a separate and far more ancient thing, briefly sharing a line of sight with the bright young giant in the foreground. The scorpion that holds all of this is itself one of the oldest pictures in the sky, and one of the few that genuinely looks like the thing it is named for. Many constellations require a generous imagination, a few faint dots called a lion, a scatter of stars called a maiden. Not the scorpion. Its long body curves down from a row of bright stars at the head, sweeps through the glowing red heart of Antares, and trails away into a graceful hook of a tail tipped with two close stars that mark the sting. Lying on a hillside under a dark southern sky, you do not have to strain to see it. The creature is simply there, drawn in light, curled across the south as it has been drawn in the minds of every people who ever watched that part of the sky. It was once even larger than it is now. In the oldest reckonings, the scorpion's claws reached far out to one side, into the stars that the Romans later cut away and renamed the scales, the constellation now called Libra. For a long time, those stars were not a separate figure at all. They were the claws of the scorpion, the grasping arms of the same great creature whose heart is Antares. Two of Libra's brightest stars still carry names, handed down through Arabic and Greek, that mean the northern claw and the southern claw, fossils of the older, larger scorpion preserved inside the names themselves, long after the creature was trimmed down to the shape we draw today. Among the wandering paths of the sky, Antares belongs to a small and select company. It is one of only 4 truly first-magnitude stars, the very brightest class, that lie close enough to the sun's yearly path to be regularly visited by the moon and the planets. The other 3 are scattered across the seasons. One marks the eye of the bull in winter, one the heart of the lion in spring, one the wheat sheaf of the maiden. And the 4th is the red heart of the summer scorpion. 4 bright stars spaced around the sky like the corners of the year, each lying near the great road that the wanderers travel. Antares is the red one, the southern one, the one that burns low and warm on the warmest nights. Watch it long enough across a single night, and you will see it do something the textbooks rarely mention, but every careful observer knows. Low to the horizon, where its light must pass through the thickest, most restless layer of the air, Antares flickers and flashes through a whole range of colours, red, then orange, then a startling flash of green or blue, then white, then red again, twinkling far more violently than the stars overhead. It is not the star that changes, it is the air, bending and scattering the light of that single low point through every colour it contains, like sunlight through a fountain spray. The redder the star and the lower it sits, the more wildly it dances. Antares, low and warm and red, is one of the great twinklers of the summer sky, a still ember made to shimmer by nothing more than the breathing of the air between. The light doing all that shimmering carries inside it a hidden fingerprint, a code that astronomers have learned to read. When the light of Antares is spread out into its full spectrum, fanned into a band of colours the way a prism fans sunlight, it is not a smooth rainbow. It is crossed by countless fine and dark lines, like a barcode printed across the colours, and each line is the signature of a particular element in the star's cooler outer layers, a wavelength of light swallowed on its way out. From those dark lines, without ever leaving the Earth, astronomers can read what the star is made of, how hot its surface is, even how fast its great body is swelling and shrinking. The whole biography of a star, written in shadows across its own light. Those same fine dark lines carry one more secret: the star's motion through space. When a star moves toward us, the lines in its light are nudged ever so slightly toward the blue end. When it moves away, they slide a touch toward the red. By measuring exactly where the lines fall, astronomers can read how fast a star is travelling along the line of sight with great precision from hundreds of light years off. Antares, with all its scattered family of sibling stars, is sweeping through the galaxy together with them, carried along on a shared current of motion, and that drift is written, plain to read, in the gentle shift of the dark lines across its light. The star is not still, it travels with its kin through the slow turning of the galaxy, and its own light quietly confesses the speed of its journey. For all its true enormity, the star's apparent size in our sky is almost unimaginably small, a consequence of the great distance. 700 suns wide and yet so far away that its disk, as seen from here, is a vanishingly tiny speck, far too small for the eye to resolve into anything but a point. It would be like trying to make out a small coin from hundreds of miles away. Only by the cleverest combinations of telescopes can that tiny disk be measured at all. So the star is at once one of the largest things the eye can see, and one of the smallest patches of sky it occupies, vast beyond reckoning in truth, and a mere pinprick in appearance, the contradiction held entirely in the long reach of the distance between. And the ancient name has outlasted nearly everything else about it. Empires that watched the star have crumbled. Languages that named it have fallen silent. The very understanding of what it is has been rebuilt from nothing in recent centuries. But the name the Greeks gave it more than 2,000 years ago, the rival of Mars, is still its name today, the official name astronomers use, printed in the catalogues, spoken in the observatories. A word coined by people watching a red light low in the south, struck by its likeness to a red planet, has survived every change of the world to label that same red light still. The star kept its place, the name kept its hold, and across all those centuries the two have stayed joined, the ancient word and the ancient light, arriving together at your eye tonight. Among those shadow lines in Antares are the marks of titanium and other metals, woven through with the broad signatures of cool molecules that can only survive where a star's surface is gentle enough not to tear them apart. The sun is too hot for such molecules. On its searing surface they would be ripped to single atoms. But on the cool red skin of Antares, at only around 3,500 degrees, simple molecules can hold together, and their fingerprints appear in the starlight, a sign of just how mild that vast red surface really is by the standards of stars. A star so large it would swallow 4 worlds, and yet so cool at its edge that delicate molecules survive there, drifting in the outermost glow. In the cool gas streaming off the star, far from its surface, some of those molecules and metals gather into something even more delicate. Fine grains of dust, the first faint motes of solid matter, condensing out of the outflowing gas like frost forming in cold air. A red supergiant is one of the great dust makers of the cosmos. As its outer gas drifts away and cools, tiny grains of mineral and soot take shape within it, and the star slowly wraps itself in a vast, thin shell of this freshly made dust, light years across, expanding outward into the dark. The same kind of dust that veils the star is the very stuff from which new worlds are one day built, the raw material of rocky planets, of mountains and seabeds, forming now in the cooling breath of the aging giant. It is a quiet marvel that solid matter is born this way at all, not in the heat of a star's heart, but in the cool exhaled breath at its edge, where the outflowing gas grows just cold enough for the first grains to take shape. The dust drifting in space, the dust that dims distant starlight and gathers into dark clouds and seeds new suns, was made in large part in places like the cooling outer atmospheres of red giants. Antares is, in this sense, a slow and steady factory of the dust of creation, breathing out, year upon year, the fine, solid grains that will drift through the galaxy and, in some far age, gather into worlds. The makings of future ground are being exhaled, right now, into the dark around the red star. There is a long patience to that too, the patience of a star that spends millions of years gently dressing itself in the dust it makes, and giving that dust away to the galaxy a little at a time. Nothing about it is hurried. The grains form slowly, drift slowly, gather slowly, across spans of time that dwarf every human reckoning. And in that unhurried giving away, the red giant quietly enriches the space around it, scattering the seeds of stone and soil into the dark, asking nothing, expecting nothing, simply breathing out the makings of worlds that will not exist for ages into a future it will never see. The pulse of the star shows up in that light as well. As Antares slowly swells and contracts over its long, uneven rhythm, the whole surface rises and falls, and the gas at the top of it moves outward and inward by turns. Studies of the finest detail in its spectrum reveal this breathing directly. Great regions of the surface heaving up and sinking back, the diameter of the entire star changing by something like 1/5 across its cycle. Imagine that. A sphere wide enough to hold the inner solar system, slowly inflating and relaxing, its whole vast body breathing in and out over months and years, so gently and so far away that from here it shows only as the faint brightening and dimming of a single red point. That slow change is gentle enough and slow enough that you could watch for it yourself over the span of a summer, with nothing but your own patient eye. Find the red star early in the season, fix its brightness in your memory against the steadier stars around it, and return to it night after night, month after month. Across that long looking, you might catch it slightly brighter, or slightly dimmer than you remembered, the great star breathing ever so faintly on a rhythm of months and years. It is one of the few things in all of astronomy that an unaided watcher can actually follow happening. A real star, visibly changing on a timescale a single patient person can hold. The heavens are not as fixed as they seem, and here is a place you can watch them stir, with no instrument but your own returning gaze. There is something companionable in that kind of long watching, even though the star never knows it is being watched. To return to the same red point across a whole season, noting its faint moods, is to keep a slow and quiet appointment with a thing that has kept its own appointments for millions of years. You need not measure anything, or write anything down, or remember the numbers. It is enough to find it again and again, and to feel the faint familiarity grow, the way you come to know the particular light of a window across a courtyard, or the precise red of a coal you have watched many evenings in the same hearth. The red star rewards the patient looker not with drama, but with familiarity, which is its own deep and lasting pleasure. Some of that swelling and breathing flings the star's outer gas away for good. A red supergiant does not hold tightly to its surface, it sheds it, casting off thin streams and shells of its own substance into the surrounding dark, losing the equivalent of an entire Earth's worth of material in not so very long by stellar reckoning. That lost gas is what lights up around it as the glowing golden cloud, so the star is slowly, gently undressing, letting layer after layer of itself drift outward into space, seeding the dark around it with the very atoms that make it shine. What you see as a soft halo is really the star giving itself away, breath by breath, into the night. In recent years, astronomers turned arrays of radio dishes toward Antares and listened, rather than looked, and what they heard let them map the star's true extent for the first time, far beyond what visible light reveals. The radio glow showed that the warm outer atmosphere of the star, its faint chromosphere and the slow wind streaming off it, reaches out far past the bright surface, out to something like 12 times the radius of the visible star. Set that whole radio-bright atmosphere in the place of the Sun, and it would fill the solar system not just to the asteroid belt but on past Saturn, an immense and tenuous shell of warm gas spanning the width of the planets. The star you see is only the dense glowing core of a thing far larger than the eye can know, a faint warm presence reaching across the whole breadth of where the planets run. That same listening revealed the atmosphere to be gently lukewarm rather than searing, warmer in places than the visible surface below it, but mild by any stellar reckoning, a soft and uneven warmth wrapped around the cooler red ball within. It is not a clean, smooth shell either, but slightly flattened and irregular, lopsided, breathing in and out unevenly as the great currents below stir it. The picture that emerges is of something less like a hard ball and more like a vast, soft, glowing weather system the size of a planetary orbit, layers of warm, thin gas, drifting and shifting, fading outward into the dark with no sharp boundary anywhere. For there is no surface to Antares at all, not in the way the ground beneath you is a surface. The star is gas, top to bottom, gas growing thicker and hotter as you imagine sinking inward, thinner and cooler as you rise outward, but never anywhere becoming solid, never offering a single firm place to stand. What we call its surface is only the depth at which the gas grows thick enough to glow visibly and stop the eye, a soft luminous boundary rather than a hard one. You could not land on Antares any more than you could land on a cloud or a flame. It is light and warmth and thin glowing gas all the way down, a sphere of fire with no floor, vast and bright and bottomless. Measuring the size of so soft-edged a thing across 6 centuries of dark is a marvel of patience and cleverness. A single telescope cannot do it. The star is far too small in the sky, a mere pinprick even to the largest instrument. So astronomers combine the light from several telescopes spread apart, letting the gathered light interfere in a way that teases out detail no single dish could see, and from that they can finally measure the tiny apparent width of the star's disk against the dark. Antares was among the first stars ever to have its true size taken this way, its disk resolved, its breadth measured, a real diameter found for a single red spark almost 600 light-years off. To stretch a measuring line across a thing so far and so faint, and find that it is 700 suns wide, is one of the quiet triumphs of careful looking. The atmosphere of Antares, in fact, reaches far beyond the part that glows. Beyond the visible red surface lies a vast, tenuous outer envelope, a faint and far-flung shell of gas so extended that set in the sun's place, it would reach outward past where the surface alone would stop, on toward the orbit of the ringed giant Saturn. The star proper would fill the asteroid belt. Its thin, breathing atmosphere would drift further still, a faint, warm haze stretching across the width of the entire inner solar system and beyond. There is no sharp edge to a star like this. It does not stop so much as fade, solid glow giving way to thinner glow, giving way to the merest warm breath of gas, dissolving at last into the dark between the stars. Hold the scale of that for a moment, gently, the way you might hold a smooth stone. The sun, which seems so large when it sets, is a marble beside this star. The whole earth is a grain of dust, and everything that has ever happened on that grain of dust, every story, every name, every long day and every quiet night, has happened in a space that Antares could enclose entirely and never notice, with the room of 3 more worlds left over. There is no fear in this. It is only perspective, and perspective, held lightly, is one of the most restful things a mind can hold. The cares of a single day are very small against a red star that has burned for millions of years and will go on burning long after the day is forgotten. Antares is young as it happens, despite its red and aged look, and that is one of the gentle surprises in its story. The sun has been shining for some 4.5 billion years and is only middle-aged. Antares has existed for only around 12 million years, a tiny fraction of the sun's age, and yet it is already nearing its end, already swollen and red and close to the final chapters, while the sun is barely halfway through its long, calm life. The reason is mass. Antares was born so much heavier than the sun that it has lived fast and bright and brief, pouring out its fuel at a furious rate, racing through in a few million years what the sun will take 10 billion years to do. It is old not in years, but in stage. A star that has lived a short, intense life, and arrived early at the threshold of its ending. The sun itself will, one far day, walk a gentler version of this same road. Some billions of years from now, when our own star has spent the hydrogen at its core, it too will swell and cool and redden, ballooning outward into a red giant, never so vast as Antares, never a true supergiant, for it was born too light for that, but red and swollen all the same, large enough to engulf the innermost planets. So the great red star in the summer sky is, in a sense, a distant glimpse of our own star's far future, a preview, written in another sun, of the kind of slow reddening transformation the sun will one day undergo. To look at Antares is to look, dimly and across an unimaginable gulf of time, at a fate the sun itself will share, magnified and hastened, but the same family of ending. There is no shadow in that thought, only a long perspective. The sun's red giant age lies billions of years away, further off than the whole age of life on Earth so far, in a future so distant it can be held only as the gentlest kind of certainty. Long, long before then, everything that ever worried over it will have passed quietly out of the world. The point is not the ending, but the kinship, that the sun and Antares are stars of the same broad kind, bound by the same physics, destined for related transformations, separated only by their mass and their pace. The red giant is not a stranger in the sky. It is a cousin of our own star, showing us, from a safe and enormous distance, one of the shapes a sun can take as it grows old. It is a strange comfort to realize that the sun too is mortal, that even the steady star we wake to is moving, however slowly, through a life with chapters and an ending of its own. Nothing in the sky is truly fixed. Everything is somewhere in its own long story, the young stars near the start, the red giants near the close, the sun in the calm middle of a tale that will, in its own unhurried time, arrive at a red and swollen age. There is peace in belonging to that great company of changing things. in knowing that the sun and the red star and you yourself are all carried along on the same vast current of time, each in your own season, each exactly where you are meant to be tonight. That is the strange arithmetic of stars. The brightest burn the briefest. A small, cool, faint red star, the most common kind in the whole galaxy, can sip its fuel so slowly that it will go on shining for trillions of years, far longer than the universe has so far existed. A great brilliant giant like Antares spends the same kind of fuel 1,000-fold faster and is gone in a handful of million years. Brightness is bought with time. The stars that shout are the ones that finish their sentence first, while the quiet ones murmur on, almost forever in the dark. Antares is one of the shouters, magnificent, brief, already near the close of its short and luminous story. In the deep core of it, right now the star is no longer burning the simple fuel it began with. The hydrogen at its heart is long spent. Antares has moved on to burning helium, fusing it into carbon and oxygen in a hot, dense centre, buried far beneath all that swollen red gas. The same elements, carbon and oxygen, that make up so much of the living world. And when the helium runs low in its turn, the star will move on again, to heavier and heavier fuels, each one burned faster than the last, each stage shorter than the one before, the core growing hotter and denser as it climbs the ladder of the elements toward the final rungs. The vast, calm red surface you see hides a centre steadily working its way through the periodic table, one element at a time. There is a tenderness in that hidden labour, if you let yourself feel it. The carbon being made in the heart of Antares tonight, and the oxygen with it, are not only the stuff of stars, they are the stuff of trees and oceans and breath. Every star of this kind that has ever lived and ended has scattered such elements into space, and from that scattered ash, new worlds and living things have been built. The carbon in your own body, the oxygen in the air moving slowly in and out of you as you lie here, were forged in the cores of stars much like this red giant long ago, and cast out into the dark to gather again. When you look at Antares, you are, in a quiet and literal way, looking at the kind of furnace that made you. The end of such a star, when it finally comes, is one of the most spectacular events the universe allows, and for Antares it lies so far in the future and at so safe a distance that it can be held only as a kind of beautiful, faraway certainty. One day, perhaps 1,000,000 years from now or more, an unimaginable span longer than the whole history of our kind so far, the core of Antares will at last build up an inner heart of iron, and iron is the rung of the ladder where the climbing stops, the one element that cannot be burned for further energy. When that iron heart grows heavy enough, it will give way, and the star will end its long life in a single, brilliant flowering of light, a supernova, the grandest of all the deaths a star can die. There is nothing to fear in that distant flowering, and everything to wonder at. Antares lies the better part of 600 light-years away, far, far too distant for its ending to touch this world in any way at all. When it comes, after a span of time so long that every mountain you know will have weathered and every coastline shifted, it will appear here as nothing more threatening than a new bright star in the southern sky, a point of light so brilliant that, for a few weeks, it would shine even in the daytime, and at night would cast faint shadows on the ground and outshine the full moon. Then, slowly, over months, it would fade, and the scorpion's bright centre would be gone. A red ember that had burned for millions of years, replaced by an empty place in the sky, and a slowly spreading cloud of light. And out of that ending, beginnings. The supernova would fling the star's entire substance outward across the dark, all the carbon and oxygen and heavier elements it had spent its life forging, all the atoms of its great red body, scattering them across light years of space. Among them would be the building blocks of future worlds, the silicon of stone, the iron of cores, the calcium that one day stiffens into bone, the oxygen that fills an ocean and a breath. Some of those atoms, ages hence, might gather into new stars, new planets, perhaps even new living things somewhere out in the dark. The death of a giant is the seeding of the next generation. Nothing is truly lost, it is only given away and waited for and built again. At the very centre, where the iron heart collapses, something else would be left behind. A small, impossibly dense remnant, the crushed core of the star packed into a sphere no larger than a city, so dense that a single spoonful of it would weigh as much as a mountain. It would be a neutron star, the fossil heart of Antares, spinning quietly in the place where the great red giant had been. From a sun wide enough to swallow the inner planets, a final core the size of a town, the whole story of the star pressed down at last into something you could walk across in an afternoon, if you could ever stand upon it, turning silently in the dark long after the light has faded and the spreading cloud has thinned to nothing. In the instant of that distant collapse far in the future, the very first messengers to leave the dying star would not be light at all, but something stranger and gentler, a vast flood of tiny, near-weightless particles called neutrinos, born in the crush of the collapsing core and streaming outward through the star and the dark beyond it. They are so faint and so shy of matter that they pass through worlds and stars as though through open air, almost never touching anything at all. Trillions of them from distant stellar deaths pass through you every day, unfelt, unnoticed, leaving no trace. When Antares ends, ages hence, its first faint whisper to reach this world would be a soundless wash of these ghostly particles, slipping through the whole of the earth without disturbing a single grain of it, the gentlest possible announcement of the grandest possible event. The glowing cloud the explosion leaves behind would not vanish quickly. It would expand outward across the dark for thousands of years, a slowly spreading shell of luminous gas, intricate and lacy and lit from within, glowing in the colours of the very elements the star had forged. The green of one element, the gold of another, the deep red of a third, each painting its own thread through the expanding lace. Such remnants are among the most beautiful objects the sky holds. The shattered shells of stars that died long ago still hang in the heavens now, glowing softly, slowly dissolving into the space around them. The death of Antares would leave just such a slow, luminous flower, opening across light years, fading over ages, scattering its colours into the night. And every atom in that spreading shell would be a gift to whatever comes after. The carbon and oxygen and silicon and iron and calcium forged across the star's whole life, flung outward by its ending, would drift through space for ages and slowly mingle with the cold clouds between the stars, enriching them, seeding them, raising the next generation of suns from richer stuff than the last. Every star that forms after carries within it the ash of the stars that died before, and so each generation is a little richer in the heavy elements than the one before it. Antares, in ending, would hand its whole substance forward, not lost, only passed along, woven into worlds and suns not yet born, somewhere out in a future too distant to picture. This is the slow, patient generosity that runs through the whole history of the cosmos. The first stars of all were made of nothing but the lightest gases, and they made the first heavier elements and scattered them in dying. The next stars formed from that enriched ash and made more and scattered that, and on, generation after generation, the universe slowly building up the richness of its own substance, one stellar death at a time. The iron in the ground, the oxygen in the sea, the carbon in every living thing. All of it was assembled this way, in the cores and the deaths of countless stars across billions of years. Antares is one such forge, mid-labour, and its eventual ending will be one more contribution to a work that has been going on since the cosmos was young, and that will go on long after. But all of that is unthinkably far away, in time as well as in space, and there is no need to dwell at the ending tonight. For now, the star is simply alive, swollen and red and breathing, burning helium into carbon at its hidden heart, throwing off soft veils of golden gas, hanging at the breast of the scorpion exactly as it has hung for all of human memory. The supernova is a promise the universe will keep long after we're gone. Tonight there is only the steady red coal, low in the warm south, doing what it has always done, glowing and waiting in no hurry whatsoever. For all its size, Antares is far from the largest star there is, and that too is a strange comfort. As enormous as it is, large enough to drown the inner planets in its own red body, it is dwarfed by a small number of even greater giants scattered across the galaxy, stars so vast that, set in the Sun's place, their surfaces would reach out past the orbit of Jupiter or Saturn or further still. There are red supergiants and hypergiants, beside which Antares would seem almost modest, almost compact. The universe does not stop at any one scale of bigness. It keeps going, tier above tier, each enormous thing nested inside the shadow of something more enormous yet, and somewhere up that ladder of size sits Antares, immense beyond imagining and still not the largest, a giant among giants, neither the biggest nor the brightest, simply one of the great and glowing things. Think about the place its surface would reach if it sat where the sun sits, that wide ring of broken stone between Mars and Jupiter, the asteroid belt. It is a strange and gentle region, that belt. Not a crowded field of tumbling boulders as stories often picture it, but a vast and mostly empty band, its scattered fragments separated by such enormous distances that a traveller passing through might never see one. It is widely thought to be the rubble of a world that never quite came together, material that, pulled at by mighty Jupiter nearby, could never gather itself into a single planet, and so remains a scattering of stone, the pieces of a world that was never built. And it is into that quiet ring of might have been that the surface of Antares would reach, a star where a failed planet's rubble drifts, swallowing the whole inner solar system and lapping at the edge of the unmade world. A measure of the star's size that the body can almost feel is how long light itself would take to cross it. Light is the fastest thing there is. It crosses the whole width of the sun in a couple of seconds and reaches the Earth from the sun in about 8 minutes. But Antares is so vast that a beam of light, moving at its full and absolute speed, would take hours to travel from one edge of the star to the other. Hours simply to cross a single star. The same light that flashes across the sun in a heartbeat would labour for half a day to span Antares. There is no better way to feel the sheer scale of it. Not 700 suns as a number, but a sphere so wide that light, the swiftest thing in all creation, grows slow inside it. And yet, for all that breadth, the whole enormous thing weighs only what a dozen or so suns weigh. The matter is spread so impossibly thin that, if you could somehow pass through the outer reaches of the star, you would find yourself in a glowing red fog far emptier than any mist on Earth. Gas so rarefied that near the surface it is thinner than the air of the highest mountaintop, thinner than the thinnest cloud. The blazing red wall you see from a distance is, up close, the faintest imaginable haze, lit from behind by the deeper fire. A star like this is mostly emptiness wearing a coat of light, vast beyond reckoning, luminous beyond compare, and almost nothing at all where you would expect it to be solid. The very emptiness of the asteroid belt holds a small lesson in scale that the mind can rest on. Even there, in what we picture as a crowded ring of stone, the pieces are so far apart and so few that the place is in truth mostly void. The cosmos is like that nearly everywhere, far emptier than it looks, the bright and solid things rare specks in immense reaches of quiet space. Antares itself is mostly empty. The belt its surface would touch is mostly empty. The space between the stars is emptier still. And there is a deep calm in that emptiness, once it stops being frightening, a sense of room, of unhurried space, of a universe with no crowding and no rush, in which a single red star can swell to the size of a solar system and still have all the room it needs. That it is so large and so far and yet visible at all is its own small wonder. 600 light-years is a distance that swallows nearly every star. Most of the suns in the galaxy lie so far off that they are invisible to the unaided eye, drowned in the dark, no matter how bright they truly are. To stand out at such a range, a star must be pouring out a truly colossal amount of light. Antares does. It is among the most luminous stars that can be seen at all from Earth without a telescope, a beacon bright enough to cross 6 centuries of empty space and still arrive as one of the most noticeable points in the whole summer sky. Its very visibility, from so far, is a measure of how enormous its true brightness is. Different watchers across the world have read that red light in their own ways, and the names they gave it are a kind of small museum of human wonder. To the ancient Persians, it was reckoned among a handful of royal stars, the great guardians of the sky, set to watch over 1/4 of the heavens. To other peoples, it was a fire, a torch, a beating heart. In many tongues and many ages, the one constant was the colour and the brightness, a red so striking in a place so prominent that no sky-watching culture could ignore it. Wherever people looked up and learned the patterns of the night, sooner or later they found the red star burning at the scorpion's breast and gave it a name and folded it into their stories. In the old Polynesian sky, where the stars were the navigator's great map across the Pacific, the bright red star was known and used and named, a marker on the wheeling vault that guided canoes across thousands of miles of open water. In the seasonal calendars of many lands, the first rising of the scorpion's heart before dawn marked a turning of the year, a signal in the sky that one season was giving way to the next. A star does not have to be understood to be useful or loved. For most of human history, no one had any idea what Antares truly was, how far, how large, how near its end. They only knew it was red and bright and faithful and there, and on the strength of that alone, it steered ships and counted seasons and anchored stories for thousands of years. In ancient China, the same red star was seen as part of a great celestial dragon, and it marked the dragon's beating heart, the heart, one of the old lunar lodges into which the sky was divided. But its oldest and most striking Chinese name reaches back 3,000 years and more, to a time when this star was watched as carefully as any in the heavens. They called it the Great Fire, a name for its deep red colour and its place as one of the brightest lights of the season, and its first appearance low in the evening sky was used to time the rhythms of the agricultural year. So important was it that one ancient dynasty took the red star as its own, a national star, a fire in the sky to rule by. The same coal you can find tonight in the warm south was, 3,000 years ago, the great fire of a people who ordered their calendar and their kingdom around its rising. Far across the southern oceans, the Maori of the Long Islands gave the red star a place of honour above all the others. To them it was Rehua, named as a chief among stars, the noblest of the lights, set high in the order of the sky. It is a fitting rank for so bright and so singular a star, the only deep red lamp among the brilliant points of the southern night. From the navigators of the Pacific to the dynasties of ancient China to the philosophers of Greece, the story is always the same in its bones. People looked up, found the red star, felt that it mattered, and gave it a name that placed it among the great and the royal. The colour alone earned it that reverence, in culture after culture, age after age. There is a deep continuity in that, a thread that runs unbroken from the earlier sky watchers straight to you, lying here tonight, finding the same red star they found. The light has not changed. The star burns the same deep red it burned for the dragon watchers of ancient China and the canoe navigators of the Pacific and the shepherds of Mesopotamia naming the scorpion's heart. Every one of them is gone now, and their kingdoms with them, and yet the red lamp they all looked up to still hangs in the same place, unchanged, faithful, waiting to be found again by whoever happens to look. To find it is to join a line of watchers thousands of years long, all of them gazing at one quiet red light, all of them, in the end, looking at the very same thing you're looking at now. The first rising of the star before dawn, after a season hidden in the sun's glare, was for many peoples a signal written in the sky, a turning of the year, a moment to mark. For weeks the scorpion would be lost in the daytime, drowned in sunlight, invisible. And then one morning, just before sunrise, the red heart would lift clear of the horizon ahead of the sun, returning to the sky after its absence. That heliacal rising, as astronomers call it, was a clock the whole sky kept, a way of counting the year by the return of a particular star to the dawn. The red giant has been keeping that appointment, rising before the sun at the same season each year, for longer than there have been calendars to write it in. There is a particular pleasure in finding it for yourself on a summer night, and it asks very little of you. Face the south when the air is warm and the sky is dark. Low down, you will find a bright reddish star, and arching out from it a long curve of fainter stars, a row above it for the head, a hook below, and to the side for the tail and sting. The red one in the middle, the brightest of them, the one that glows like a coal rather than a spark, is Antares. Once you have found it, you will always know it. It returns to the same place each summer, faithful as a season, and each time you find it, you're looking at light that left it before you were born, before anyone you know was born, on its long, quiet way to your eye. The light from the head of the scorpion just above Antares carries a contrast worth holding. Those stars are blue-white and hot, the colour of stellar youth, fierce and brilliant, burning at the start of their lives, and right below them sits the red giant, the same colour a hot blue star eventually becomes when it grows old and swells. So in one small arc of the summer sky you can see side by side the beginning and the near ending of a massive star's life. The blue-white blaze of youth in the head, the red glow of old age in the heart. A single constellation holding 2 ages of a star at once, drawn across the dark for anyone patient enough to notice. Light itself takes on a different meaning when you sit with a star like this. The red you see is not paint or fire in the ordinary sense. It is the particular colour that hot matter glows when it reaches a particular temperature, the deep red that anything glows when it's just hot enough to shine and no hotter. Antares is, in effect, a vast cloud of glowing gas held at exactly that gentle threshold, the lowest temperature at which a thing gives off visible light. The sun glows yellow-white because its surface is hotter. The blue-white stars in the scorpion's head glow blue because their surfaces are hotter still. Colour, in the sky, is simply temperature made visible, and Antares wears the warmest, gentlest colour a star can wear. A blacksmith at the forge reads this same language every working day, though few ever think of the connection. Iron drawn cool from the fire glows a dull red. Pushed hotter, it brightens to orange, then to yellow, then to a near-white glare as the heat climbs. The smith judges the temperature of the metal by its colour alone, by eye, exactly as an astronomer judges the temperature of a star. And the dull red end of that scale, the first faint glow of iron just hot enough to shine, is precisely the colour of Antares. The great red star glows at the temperature of metal barely beginning to warm in the coals, the gentlest rung on the whole ladder of glowing heat. To look at it is to see, written across 600 light years, the same soft red a smith sees in the first warming of the iron. Because its surface is so cool, most of the light Antares pours out is not the red you see at all, but a deeper, longer kind of light the eye cannot catch, the invisible warmth called infrared, the same low radiance that rises from a banked fire or a sun-warmed stone after dark. The cooler a glowing thing is, the more of its light slips below the red into that unseen warmth, and Antares is cool enough that the great majority of its radiance leaves it as invisible heat. The red you see is only the small visible crest of a far larger outpouring of warmth that flows past your eyes entirely unseen. If you could feel that warmth as you feel the heat of a fire, the night sky would carry, from that one red point, a faint, far breath of warmth, the gentlest possible touch of a fire burning 6 centuries away. There is something tender in that hidden warmth, in a glow that gives off far more than it ever shows. The star is more generous than it looks. For every ray of red light it sends to be seen, it sends several more rays of warmth that no eye will ever register, pouring its energy out into the dark in a key below seeing. Most of what Antares does goes unwitnessed, unmeasured by any casual glance, a vast quiet outpouring of warmth into the night, asked for by no one, seen by no one, simply given. The visible red is the small part it shows the world. The greater part it gives away in silence, in warmth, into the dark, the way the kindest things are so often the quietest. Colour near the horizon plays one more trick worth knowing, and it deepens the star's redness still further. When Antares sits low, its light must travel through a long, slanting path of air to reach you. Far more air than for a star overhead, and that thick air scatters away the blue and lets the red through best. The same reason a setting sun glows red, and the same reason distant hills fade to soft blue. So a star already red is reddened further still when it lies low, its colour deepened and warmed by the long passage through the air. Low in the warm south, near the horizon, Antares burns its deepest, richest red, partly its own true colour, and partly the gift of all that air, deepening the coal as it sinks toward the edge of the world. The sound such a star would make if sound could cross the empty dark is something to imagine softly. A star is not silent inside itself. Great convective currents of gas roll and churn beneath its surface, rising and sinking, carrying heat up from the depths the way water boils and turns in a pot. And on a red supergiant those currents are vast, single rolling cells of glowing gas larger across than the orbit of a planet, slowly turning over the whole surface. If you could stand impossibly far off and somehow hear it, the star would be a low and ceaseless rumble, a deep, slow churning too low and too distant for any ear. But space carries no sound, and so all that turmoil reaches you as nothing but silence and a steady red light, a roaring furnace that arrives at your window as the most peaceful thing imaginable. The star belongs, by its place in the sky, to the warm half of the year. It rides low across the south, never climbing high overhead for those who live far from the equator, and so it has always been a creature of summer nights and warm evenings, the star you find when the air is soft and the dark comes late. From the far north it barely clears the horizon at all, skimming low along the southern edge of the sky. From the lands nearer the equator and below, it rises high and proud. Wherever you are, though, it keeps to its season. It is the heart of the summer scorpion, the red lamp of the warm months, returning each year as the nights grow mild, setting the mood of the season as much as the warmth and the long dusk. That low southern path means its light always reaches you through a generous helping of air, and a generous helping of the dust that drifts in the plane of our galaxy. And here the star's redness serves it well. Red light slips through dust more easily than blue. The fine grains that dim and redden starlight let the long red wavelengths pass while scattering the short blue ones away. So a red star shines through the dusty lanes of the galaxy, better than a blue one would, its long, warm light threading the haze that would dim a bluer star further. There is a quiet fitness in that, the reddest of the bright stars, set against the dustiest reach of the sky, its colour the very thing that lets it shine clearly through the haze toward your eye. It is worth remembering too how few stars there truly are to be seen at all. For all the talk of countless stars, the human eye on the very darkest night can make out only a few thousand of them in the whole sphere of the sky, a few thousand out of the hundreds of billions the galaxy holds. The rest are too faint, too far, drowned in the dark. So every star you can actually see is one of the brightest, nearest, or most luminous of all, a select few standing out from the unseen multitude. And Antares is among the most striking of even that select company. Not one of the faint many, but one of the standout few, a star bright enough and singular enough to be noticed and named by every people who ever counted the lights of the night. Out of those few thousand visible stars, Only a small number are giants of this kind, near the ends of their lives, swollen and red and bright. Most of the stars you see are ordinary suns in the long, steady middle of their lives, white or yellow or blue. The red supergiants are rare jewels scattered thinly among them, a mere handful of these great aging lamps visible to the unaided eye in the entire sky. To pick out Antares is to pick out one of that small and precious set, not an everyday star but one of the few true giants the naked eye can reach, a rare and grand thing hiding in plain sight, low in the warm south, for anyone who knows to look. Those rolling cells of gas are part of why the star's surface is not perfectly smooth or perfectly steady. A red supergiant has only a handful of these enormous convective currents covering its whole face at any time, each one a continent of rising glow as wide as a solar system, brightening as hot gas wells up and dimming as it cools and sinks. The surface of Antares is mottled and shifting, blotched with these slow, vast cells, never quite the same from one long season to the next. From here it all blends into a single steady point of red, but up close it would be a living, churning, mottled thing, its great glowing cells slowly turning over like the surface of something simmering in the dark. The distance to such a star is itself an achievement worth pausing on, because measuring it is no small thing. How do you find the distance to a point of light hundreds of light years away, with no way to ever go there? Astronomers do it with patience and geometry. As the Earth swings around the Sun across a year, our viewpoint shifts by the full width of our orbit, and against that shifting baseline a nearby star appears to wobble by the tiniest amount relative to the more distant ones behind it. Measure that minuscule wobble, far smaller than the width of a coin seen from miles off, and simple geometry gives you the distance. That is how the 550 light-years to Antares is known, not by travelling, but by watching it shift ever so slightly as the Earth swings you from one side of the Sun to the other and back. Even that careful measurement comes with a soft uncertainty, and there is something honest and human in that. Antares is so large and so far, its outer atmosphere so puffed and indistinct, that its exact distance and exact size are not pinned down to the last decimal. Different methods give answers that differ a little. The numbers shift as the instruments improve. This is not a failure, but the ordinary texture of knowledge about distant things. A gentle blur at the edges of even our best measurements. A reminder that the star keeps some of its secrets, and that to know a thing roughly, and to know that you know it only roughly, is its own kind of wisdom. The red star is about 5.5 centuries away, about 700 suns wide, about a dozen suns worth of mass, and the word about here is not weakness. It is honesty. Consider how recently, in the long human story, we learned any of this at all. For all the thousands of years that people named the red star and steered by it and wove it into myth, no one knew it was a sun, or how far away or how vast. The understanding that Antares is a distant star like our own, only enormous and aging, is only a few centuries old. The measurement of its true size and distance is younger still, well within the age of the photograph, the telescope, the careful modern eye. The star has been there all along, unchanged across all of human history. It is only we who have lately learned to read it. The light is ancient, the understanding is new, and both arrive at the same dark window on the same warm night for you. The very classification of it, red supergiant, names a whole chapter in the life of the largest stars, and Antares is one of the nearest and clearest examples of that chapter. Only stars born much heavier than the Sun ever become supergiants at all. The Sun itself will swell into a red giant one distant day, but never reach the vaster supergiant scale. To become what Antares is, a star must begin its life with many times the Sun's mass, blaze fiercely through its youth, and then, as its core fuel changes, balloon outward into the cool red immensity you see. Of all the countless stars in the sky, only a small number are passing through this brief, grand, late stage at any one time. and Antares is among the closest of them, a textbook example hanging right there in the summer south. Set beside its famous cousin in the winter sky, Antares finds a near twin. Across the year, in the constellation of the Hunter, there is another great red supergiant, a star of much the same kind, much the same age, much the same fate, marking the Hunter's shoulder as Antares marks the Scorpion's heart. The two of them are the sky's matched pair of red giants, one for summer and one for winter, each enormous, each cool and red, each near the end of a short, brilliant life, each destined one distant day to end as a supernova. To find one is to have a sense of the other. The summer Scorpion's heart and the winter Hunter's shoulder, two coals at opposite ends of the year, burning the same deep red. Antares did not form alone, and it is not, even now, a solitary star wandering the dark. It belongs to a great loose family, a sprawling association of stars, thousands of them, that were all born together from the same vast cloud some millions of years ago, and that still drift through space along nearly the same path, like a flock that took wing together and has not yet fully scattered. It is the nearest such stellar family to the Sun, spread across a wide reach of the southern sky, and Antares is its brightest and most evolved member, the eldest sibling, the first to grow old, the first that will end. All around it in that part of the heavens, though far too faint or far for the casual eye to gather, are its kin, stars born of the same cloud, of the same age, moving the same way, a whole scattered brotherhood with the red giant at its head. There is a quiet tenderness in that thought, that even a star has siblings. The same collapsing cloud that made Antares made hundreds of other stars beside it, and they set out together into the galaxy, a clutch of suns born at one stroke from one dark cloud. Over the long ages they have drifted gradually apart, as such families always do, spreading across the sky, each going its own slow way. But the kinship is still there, written in their shared motion and their common age and the matching stuff they are made of. The red giant is not an only child. It is the grandest member of a great dispersed family of stars, still loosely travelling together through the dark millions of years after their shared birth. And being the heaviest of that family, Antares was always fated to be the first to go. The most massive stars burn fastest and die soonest. The lighter siblings will shine on for a long time yet, some of them for billions of years, long after the great red eldest has ended in its flowering of light. There is something familiar and human in that pattern, the largest and brightest spending itself quickest, the quieter and smaller ones enduring far longer. The red giant blazes at the head of its family precisely because it is racing through its life faster than any of them, pouring out in a few million years what its fainter kin will husband across the whole long age of the galaxy. That its family is the nearest of its kind makes it a kind of open book for understanding how stars are born in groups. By studying the scattered siblings of Antares, their ages, their motions, their numbers, astronomers can read the whole story of how a great cloud of gas collapses and shatters into a brood of stars, and how that brood slowly disperses across the ages. The red giant and its kin are one of the clearest nearby examples of the way most stars come into being, not one at a time, in isolation, but together, in families, from a single cloud, born in company and only slowly over millions of years, drifting apart into the solitary points we see. It is worth holding too how the redness of Antares would look from very close, for it would not be the angry red of fire but something softer and stranger. A surface at 3,500 degrees, vast and dim per unit of area, would glow more like the deep red of heated metal cooling, or the last embers of a hearth, than like a blinding white sun. Standing impossibly near it, you would see not a fierce point, but an enormous, dull, smouldering wall of red light filling half the sky, calm and slow and immense, its great convective cells brightening and fading across its face like clouds lit from beneath. A sun you could almost look at. A red so deep and so wide it would feel less like a star than like a sunset that filled the whole of space and never ended. The slow pulse of the star, its long uneven breathing, the swelling and shrinking that changes its brightness over months and years, is part of why stars like this are sometimes called semi-regular variables. The rhythm is there, but it wanders. The star does not keep perfect time. It brightens, then dims, then brightens again, on a loose and shifting cycle, as if it were breathing in its sleep, never quite the same breath twice. There is something deeply restful in a rhythm that is almost regular but not quite. A tide that comes in and goes out on its own loose schedule. A chest rising and falling without counting. The red ember does not tick. It breathes. And it has been breathing like that, slowly, for far longer than anyone has been watching. The records of the star's brightness go back only a few centuries in careful detail, and across all that time it has done much the same thing, wavered gently, never wildly, around the same warm glow. Whatever rhythm Antares keeps, it has kept it patiently, longer than any single human life, longer than any instrument has run, an old slow breathing that began before the records and will continue long after. To watch it is to catch a few breaths of something that has been breathing, unhurried, for ages, and will go on doing so, indifferent and serene, for ages more. There is a lesson hidden in how the star sheds its own substance, and it is a gentle one. Antares is not holding on tightly to anything. It throws off its outer gas into the dark, loses its own material steadily to space, and grows the soft glowing cloud around itself in the giving. It does not hoard its brightness. It spends it, pours it out, scatters it. And in that spending it lights up the dust for light years around and seeds the dark with the makings of new worlds. There is no grasping in a star. It is the most generous thing imaginable, burning itself away, giving itself outward, asking for nothing back, and somehow more beautiful for the losing. The soft gold halo you see is simply what generosity looks like, from 600 light years off. Imagine the view from a world that might once have circled such a star. For though Antares burns far too fiercely and changeably now to hold a gentle world, the thought is a peaceful one. The red giant would fill an enormous swathe of that world sky, a vast dull red dome of light, far larger than the sun looks from here, its great convective cells drifting across its face. There would be no harsh small disk, no blinding point, only a huge, soft, smouldering presence, warm and slow and red, taking up a great reach of the heavens. A sunrise on such a world would not be a spark cresting the horizon, but a slow flood of deep red light spilling up from below, an enormous coal lifting into view. The mind can rest a long while in that imagined landscape, beneath that great calm red sky. Consider too how the brightness of the star compares with the small fierce sun we know. If Antares stood as near to us as our own sun, it would not be a point of light at all, nor even a disk. It would be an overwhelming red wall filling a vast reach of the heavens, far too large and bright to take in, a glowing red dome stretched across the whole of the sky. The actual sun, that blinding disk that lights every day, would be a mere speck beside it, a single bright point lost against that enormous red expanse. There is no danger in the thought, only scale. The real Antares is safely 600 light years off, a gentle red coal. But to imagine it brought close is to feel, in the body, just how immense a single star can be, large enough that, near at hand, it would be less a star in the sky than a sky in itself. The brightness it actually pours out, tens of thousands of times the sun's, is hard to hold as a number, but easy to feel as a thought. The sun lights an entire world, every dawn, every noon, every growing thing, every warm afternoon, all of it from that one ordinary star. Now imagine the light of 10,000 such suns, or more, all poured out at once from a single source, streaming endlessly in every direction across the dark. That is the true output of Antares, flooding the space around it with a radiance that dwarfs our whole familiar daylight, and only the faintest far-travelled thread of it ever reaches your eye, dimmed by 6 centuries of distance to the soft red glow you see. The gentle coal in the summer sky is, at its source, one of the most overwhelming lights in this whole reach of the galaxy, and yet, from here, it asks nothing and disturbs nothing. All that colossal output, all that furious brightness and churning heat and slow, vast breathing, arrives at your window as the mildest thing imaginable. A single small red point, soft and steady, easy to overlook, asking only to be noticed if you happen to look up. The most violent furnaces in the universe become, at a great enough distance, the most peaceful sights in the night. There is a deep lesson in that for a restful mind. That immense power, seen from far enough away, is indistinguishable from perfect calm. The red star roars, and from here the roar is silence. It blazes, and from here the blaze is a gentle glow. It pours out the light of 10,000 suns, and from here it is only a quiet ember to fall asleep beneath. Perhaps that is the truest gift of a star like this, not the facts of its size or its heat or its distance, remarkable as they are, but the simple, steadying presence of it. Long before anyone measured a single thing about it, the red star was a comfort in the night, a faithful light that came back with the warm season year upon year, dependable as the lengthening of the evenings. It does not need to be understood to be loved. It only needs to be there, and it is there, tonight, as it was for every watcher who came before, a single deep red coal low in the south, burning quietly, asking nothing, keeping its own slow time, ready to be found by anyone who lifts their eyes, and just as content to glow unseen. There is a simple way to tell the star from its planetary rival, on a night when Mars wanders near and the 2 red lights sit side by side in the south, and it is one of the small quiet pleasures of stargazing. Watch how they shine. The planet glows with a steady untwinkling light, calm and even. The star flickers and shimmers, trembling through its colours, never quite still. That is the oldest test there is for telling a planet from a star. Planets shine steadily, while stars twinkle. So on a night when the rival of Mars meets Mars itself, the steady light is the world, and the dancing light is the star. The small near planet calm, the vast far sun shivering, the difference written plainly for anyone patient enough to look for a moment. It is a lovely irony that the star named for its likeness to Mars can be told apart from Mars by something so gentle as a flicker. For all that the two are twins in colour and brightness, they are utterly unlike in nature. One a small cold world a few light minutes off, the other an enormous dying sun nearly 600 light years away. And yet the only ready way to part them, with the naked eye, is to notice which one trembles. The whole vast difference between a planet and a star comes down, on a summer night, to the steadiness of a point of light. The ancients could not have known how deep that difference truly ran. They only knew that one of the red lights held still, and the other shivered. That shiver, in the end, is a kind of gift the air gives us, a way of knowing the far things from the near, written into the light by the breath of the atmosphere. Without the air, every star would shine as steadily as a planet, and the sky would lose its soft trembling entirely. It is the moving air, the same air that carries your own slow breathing tonight, that sets the distant stars to shimmering and leaves the nearer planets calm. So the twinkling of Antares is, in a quiet way, a collaboration between the most distant thing you can see and the nearest air around you, the far star and the near breath, together, making the gentle dancing light that has soothed watchers for as long as there have been eyes to lift. And perhaps that is reason enough to love it, that so much meaning gathers around a single quiet point of red. A star's true size and heat and distance, the families it belongs to, the elements it forges, the names 100 peoples gave it, the slow breathing and the far ending, all of it folded into one small light low in the warm south, asking nothing of anyone, content to be looked at or content to be missed. The whole long wonder of it weighs nothing in the looking. You can hold every fact of it or let every fact of it go, and either way the red coal glows on, steady in its great slow rhythm, exactly as it has through all the nights of all the watchers who ever found it, and all the nights when no one looked at all. The actual worlds of Antares, if it has any left, would be a hard and barren company now, but the system it belongs to is itself a thing of quiet grandeur. The great red star and its hot blue companion turn around their shared centre across many human lifetimes, the two of them bound in a slow waltz, too gradual for any eye to follow through even a small fraction of its course. Whole generations of astronomers have watched the pair and seen them barely move. There is a kind of peace in a motion that's slow, a dance whose single step takes longer than recorded history, two stars circling each other so patiently that to us they seem to simply hang, fixed, side by side, in the warm dark of the summer south. Light leaving Antares spreads out in every direction at once, a thinning sphere of red glow expanding into the dark, and only the tiniest sliver of all that outpouring light ever happens to fall on the earth, on the small dark dot of your open eye. Of all the radiance the star throws across all of space, the share that reaches any one watcher is unimaginably small, a single thread plucked from a flood, and yet it is enough to cross 6 centuries, enough to enter your eye, enough to be seen and known and wondered at. The star pours out its light to no one in particular, in every direction, endlessly. And some small part of that endless pouring happens tonight to find you. The atoms that make up Antares are mostly the simplest in the universe. Hydrogen and helium, the two lightest elements, the ones that fill the cosmos almost from its very beginning. The star is a great glowing ball of the oldest material there is, gathered together by gravity and set alight. And in its core, slowly, it is doing what stars have always done, taking those simplest atoms and the helium ash of its youth and forging them into something heavier, something new, carbon, oxygen, the seeds of complexity. A star is an engine that turns simplicity into richness, lightness into weight, the plain into the intricate. Antares is one such engine, large and red and patient, quietly enriching the universe one fused atom at a time. The whole galaxy is full of stars at every stage of this work, and Antares lets you hold one stage of it in a single glance. The blue-white stars of the Scorpion's head are young, burning hydrogen near the start. The red heart is old in stage, burning helium near the end. The faint globular swarm nearby is ancient, older than them all. Look across that one patch of summer sky, and you are looking across the whole life cycle of stars. Birth in the colourful clouds, youth in the blue stars, old age in the red giant, antiquity in the globular cluster. All of it laid out at once, drawn in light, in a single reach of the dark you can take in without turning your head. Even the name carries a small mystery worth turning over softly in the mind. The rival of Mars, but a rival the star never sought, never knew, and dwarfs beyond all comparison. Mars is a near small stone, Antares is a far vast sun. The two are rivals only in the eye, only in the warm red light they happen to share, only on a summer night low in the south where the planet wanders near the star. It is a rivalry of appearance and nothing more, and there is something gently funny and gently beautiful in it, that one of the largest stars the eye can see should be named for its resemblance to one of the small worlds nearest at hand. The cosmos does not mind. The star glows on, rival to a planet 100 million times its lesser, indifferent and serene. How long the light has been arriving is a thing to hold lightly against your own small span of nights. The light reaching you this evening left Antares around the time the printing press was new, and ships were first crossing the widest oceans, and the people of that age looked up at the very same red star and saw light that had, in its turn, left centuries before them. Every generation that has ever looked at Antares has seen light from a time before its own. The star is always sending letters from the past, and every watcher, in every age, reads an old one. You and a sailor 500 years ago are reading from the same long delay, the same patient crossing, the same red coal that does not know or care who happens to be looking. There is a gentle strangeness in knowing that you never see the star as it is, but only as it was. The light in your eye tonight left Antares almost 600 years ago. Whatever the star is doing at this very moment, whether it has brightened or dimmed, swelled or shrunk in its slow breathing, you cannot know, and will not know, for centuries. The news travels at the speed of light and no faster, and the distance is 600 years wide. So you're watching, always, a star out of the past, a portrait 6 centuries old, faithfully delivered but long delayed. The present face of Antares is a secret the dark is still keeping, a letter still in transit, not due to arrive in any sky for hundreds of years yet to come. And yet there is nothing unsettling in that delay, only a kind of peace. The star is so steady, so slow in its changes, that the portrait 6 centuries old is very nearly a true likeness still. Little of consequence has happened to it in all that time, and little will for ages more. A red supergiant in this phase changes its great character only across spans of many thousands of years. So the old light is honest light. The past it shows is very close to the present it hides. You can trust the ancient glow to tell you near enough what is there now, a vast red coal, breathing slowly, exactly as it has for longer than all of human history, and will for longer still. It is worth resting once in the sheer reach of that delay across the whole sky. Every star you can see shows you its own past, each by a different amount. The nearer ones by years, the farther ones by centuries or millennia. The night sky is not a snapshot of a single moment at all, but a vast collage of different times, each point of light a window onto a different depth of the past, all gathered into one apparent instant on the dome above you. To look up is to look across time as much as across space, to see, in a single glance, light that left its sources across thousands of years, arriving together at your one quiet upward gaze tonight. The galaxy itself wheels slowly around its distant centre, and Antares wheels with it, carried along on the same great current as the sun, as every star you can see. The whole bright pinwheel of the Milky Way turns once in hundreds of millions of years, far too slowly to feel, and within that turning Antares drifts through space along its own long arc, neighbour to the sun for now, but only for now. For over the vast spans of galactic time, even the nearest stars slowly rearrange themselves, drifting apart, the familiar patterns of the sky imperceptibly dissolving and reforming. The scorpion we see is the scorpion of this age. Long hence, the stars will have moved, and the creature will have lost its shape, and Antares will hang somewhere new. But not soon. Not for ages and ages. Tonight the scorpion holds. The whole sky in fact turns through a slow, secret motion that no single lifetime can feel. The earth spins like a vast top, and like a top it wobbles, its axis tracing a great slow circle against the stars over many thousands of years. Because of that wobble, the patterns slide very gradually around the heavens. The star that marks true north changes across the ages, and the constellations rise in slightly shifted places as the centuries pass. The scorpion the ancient Babylonians saw was not in quite the same spot as the scorpion you see tonight, and the one your distant descendants will see will have drifted further still. The change is far too slow to notice in 100 years, but across the long reach of recorded history the sky has quietly turned, carrying the red star with it, a motion so patient that it takes whole civilizations to measure. The red giant and its blue companion turn around each other on a rhythm, just as far beyond a single watcher, a slow circling that takes well over 1,000 years to complete even once. Whole human lifetimes, stacked end to end, would not be enough to watch the pair go once around. Every astronomer who has ever studied them has seen them at very nearly the same point in their long dance. barely moved from where their predecessors saw them. There is a deep stillness in a motion that's slow. Two stars genuinely orbiting, genuinely in motion, sweeping along their great curved paths, and yet to any human eye simply hanging there, fixed side by side, the way they will go on appearing to hang for all the lifetimes anyone alive will ever know. Hold these two slow turnings together, the wobble of the whole sky and the waltz of the paired stars, and they give a strange and restful sense of time. So much is moving, all the while, that seems to us perfectly still. The stars drift, the pole shifts, the companion circles, the galaxy wheels, and every one of those motions is far too slow for any single night, or year, or life to catch. What looks fixed is merely slow. The night sky is not a frozen ceiling, but a vast, deliberate, almost imperceptible flowing, and there is comfort in that, in resting beneath a sky that is quietly, ceaselessly in motion, on rhythms so patient that to us they read as perfect peace. There is a freedom in standing beneath motions that long. Nothing in the sky asks you to keep up with it. The red star will still be there tomorrow, and next summer, and in 1,000 years, scarcely changed. Its companion will barely have stirred. The pole will have shifted by a hair. You can let it all go on without you, and it will, exactly as it has gone on without every watcher who came before. There is nothing to track, nothing to tend, nothing to hold. The sky keeps its own slow time, and the only thing it asks of you tonight is that you rest beneath it, which is no asking at all. It is a humbling and a soothing thing to realize that the constellation is not a real object at all, only a chance alignment, a trick of perspective. The stars of the Scorpion are not near one another in space. They lie at wildly different distances, scattered through the depths, some near and some far, with nothing but the line of sight to gather them into a single shape. The head and the heart and the tail are not companions. They only appear to be from this one vantage on this one small world. The Scorpion is a picture drawn by where we happen to stand. Move to another star, and the shape would scatter and be gone, its members flung apart across a sky that no longer knew them as a single creature. And yet the picture is no less lovely for being a trick of standpoint. The mind makes meaning out of scattered lights, draws a creature where there is only distance and chance, and finds in that creature something to love and steer by and remember. Antares is the heart of a Scorpion that exists nowhere but in the way the light happens to fall on this one planet, and that is enough. The patterns we make of the stars are gifts we give ourselves, ways of holding the vast dark in a shape the heart can keep. The Scorpion is ours, the red heart is ours to name. The cosmos provides the lights, we provide the meaning, and on a warm summer night, that quiet collaboration is one of the oldest comforts there is. The depth behind the star is worth letting the mind fall into gently. When you look at Antares, you're not looking at a point on a dome. You're looking down a corridor of space 5.5 centuries deep, and beyond the star, further still, lie other stars and clouds, and the ancient globular swarm, and then the edge of our own galaxy, and then the dark gulfs between galaxies, and then other galaxies beyond counting, all stacked one behind another along that single line of sight. The red star is only the nearest bright thing in an immense receding depth. To look at it is to look into a well with no bottom, and to find somehow that the bottomlessness is not frightening but restful, a vastness that holds you rather than threatens you, a dark that has room for everything, including you. The colours of that whole region, captured in long exposures, are among the most beautiful the sky has to offer, and they reward a slow imagining. Around Antares, the dust glows gold. Nearby, other clouds glow blue where hotter stars light them. Dark lanes of dust win between, black against the glow, and the whole tapestry shades from crimson through amber through deep blue, soft and luminous, like dye spreading slowly through water. No eye can see those colours directly. They are too faint, and the night strips colour from dim things, but the camera, drinking in the light for hours, reveals them, and they are real. That corner of the sky around the red star is, in truth, one of the most colourful places in the entire heavens, a quiet riot of soft colour wrapped around a single warm coal. The dust that does all that glowing is itself the stuff of stars, fine grains of carbon and silicate, the smoke of old suns drifting through space in vast thin clouds. It is the same kind of material that Antares is shedding now, the same kind that will one day gather into new stars and worlds. The dark lanes you see threading the bright clouds are denser knots of this dust, thick enough to block the light behind them, and inside such dark knots, hidden from view, new stars are condensing, drawing themselves together out of the cold cloud, beginning the same long story that Antares is now nearing the end of. The dust is both ash and seed, the leftovers of dead stars and the cradle of new ones, all at once, all in the same soft glow. There is a long rhythm to all of this, far longer than any single star, and it is the deepest comfort of the whole picture. Stars are born from clouds, they live and shine, they age and swell and die, and in dying they return their substance to the clouds, which gather again into new stars which live and die in their turn. Antares is one beat in that endless rhythm, a star built from the ash of older stars, now slowly giving itself back so that newer stars may rise. The cosmos does not run down to nothing. It turns and turns again, matter passing from cloud to cloud, across billions of years, the same atoms used and used again, light kindling out of darkness and sinking back and kindling once more. To watch Antares is to watch one turn of that great wheel. The energy that lets it shine at all comes from the very heart of matter, and there is a quiet marvel in how little fuel does so much. In the core of Antares, atomic nuclei are being fused together, and each fusion releases a tiny burst of energy as a sliver of mass is converted into light, the same principle that lit the early universe and lights every star. A vanishingly small fraction of the star's substance turned from matter into pure energy is enough to make it blaze across 6 centuries of dark. The light filling your eye tonight is, quite literally, matter that has become light, a few grains of a star's body, transformed into radiance, sent out across the void, arriving at last as a faint red glow on the back of your eye. Pause on that lightly before letting it go. The redness you see is mass that used to be something, and is now nothing but light, substance converted in the furnace of a star into the gentlest thing there is. Whatever those atoms once were, they ended their being as a ray of red light crossing 550 years of emptiness to reach a single watcher on a small world. There is no waste in it, and no violence you could feel, only transformation, the heaviest thing, matter itself, becoming the lightest, light itself, and travelling unimaginably far to be quietly seen and just as quietly forgotten by an eye already half closed in sleep. The star keeps no record of being seen, and that is part of its peace. It does not know that it is called the Scorpion's Heart, or the rival of Mars, or that ships once steered by it, or that anyone has ever looked up. It simply burns and breathes and sheds its golden veils, and turns through space, indifferent and serene, exactly as it would if no eye had ever opened beneath it. There is a deep restfulness in being near something so wholly unconcerned with you, a vastness that asks nothing, expects nothing, needs nothing, and yet is freely there to be looked at, freely pouring out its red light to anyone who happens to glance up. You can rest in that indifference the way you rest in the sound of the rain. It is not for you, and it holds you all the same. The future of the star held gently as a kind of slow and certain music. It will burn its helium, and then its carbon, and then heavier fuels still, each stage faster than the last, building toward the iron core that cannot burn. The whole long descent toward the supernova is already written into its mass, already underway in its hidden heart. but it unfolds across spans of time so vast that, from the vantage of a single night, the star is simply changeless, a fixed red coal that will outlast everything you will ever know. The ending is real, and the ending is certain, and the ending is so far away that it need cast no shadow at all on a warm summer evening. The star has a long, long way yet to glow. When the end finally comes, it will be the most luminous thing that part of the sky has ever shown. And even that brilliance is a thing of beauty rather than fear, seen from this safe and enormous distance. For a few weeks, the dying star would outshine every other star in the heavens, a single point so bright it would be plainly visible by day and cast soft shadows by night, a new and temporary sun low in the south. People would gather to look at it, as people have always gathered to look at the rare bright things in the sky. And then it would fade, slowly, gracefully, over months, sinking back into the dark, leaving behind a small, dense remnant and a spreading shell of glowing gas. A grand farewell, performed once and watched perhaps by eyes we cannot imagine. But the supernova is a story for a future so distant it lies beyond all the spans we know, and tonight the star is only itself, patient, red, enormous, breathing slowly at the scorpion's breast, scattering its soft gold light into the dust, asking nothing, promising everything, in no hurry at all. There is nothing you need do about any of it. The star will keep its long appointment with the end whether you remember this or not. For tonight there is only the looking and the resting, and the warm red glow of a coal that has burned above this world since before the word for fire, and will burn long after the last of tonight is forgotten. Let yourself sink a little deeper now, the way the star's outer gas sinks slowly back when its great body draws inward between breaths. The mind can let go of the numbers, the 700 suns of width, the 550 years of light, the dozen suns of mass. None of it needs holding. The numbers were only ever ways of pointing at something too large to hold anyway, and the pointing is done. What remains is simpler, a red light, far away, faithful, calm. That is all the star ever really was to the eye, long before anyone measured it. A red light, far away, that returns each summer to the same place in the warm south and stays. The whole of the scorpion will set in time as the night turns, sliding slowly down toward the horizon, the red heart sinking last or first depending on the season, the long-curved body following it down into the dark below the world's edge. And then, hours later, somewhere, it will rise again, the same shape, the same red coal at its centre, climbing back into another sky for other watchers further around the turning Earth. The star never sets truly. It only passes out of one sky and into another, endlessly, as the world turns beneath it. Somewhere, always, someone is watching Antares climb or fall. It is always rising. It is always setting. It simply depends on where you stand on the slowly turning ground. And as the world turns and the scorpion sets, the red star carries with it everything this long night has held. The cool red surface and the hot blue companion, the golden cloud and the colourful depths, the breathing pulse and the hidden core, the ancient light and the distant ending. All of it folded into a single point of warm red light, low in the summer south, hundreds of years away. You do not have to keep any of it. The star keeps itself. It has kept itself for millions of years and will keep itself for ages more, glowing and breathing and giving its light away, long after this night and this looking and this gentle drift towards sleep have passed quietly out of the world. Here, near the very last of it, is the quietest wonder of all, the one that holds all the others inside it, like the cool dark holds the red star. You are made of this, not figuratively, actually. The carbon in your bones, the oxygen in the breath moving slowly through you, the iron in your blood, the calcium that holds your shape. Every atom of it, heavier than the lightest gases, was forged inside a star, in a core not so unlike the hidden heart of Antares, and then scattered into the dark by a star's death, and gathered again across unimaginable time into clouds and worlds and at last into you. The red coal at the heart of the scorpion is doing right now the same patient work that long ago made the stuff of your own resting body. You're not separate from that distant light. You are what it eventually becomes. So when you look at Antares, when you find it low in the warm south, that single red ember among the cold white sparks, you're looking at a kind of mirror across 600 years of dark. There is the furnace. Here is what furnaces make. There is the giving away. Here is what the giving builds. The same atoms, the same fire, the same slow turning of matter into light and light into matter and matter into life. All of it one continuous thing, the star and the watcher woven from the same ancient ash. That distant red heart and the heart beating slowly in your own chest are cousins, made of the same stuff, kindled from the same long-dead suns. And there is nothing you need do with that knowledge. It is simply true, and it is simply yours, and it asks only that you rest inside it for a moment, here at the end of the night. The journey is complete now. 101 wonders have drifted past, and there is nothing left to reach for. If you are still here, still drifting, there is another quiet journey already waiting on the screen, ready whenever you are, or never at all, if sleep takes you first, which is exactly as it should be. There is no need to choose. There is no need to do anything. Let the red star fade now from the front of your mind. Let the numbers go. Let the names go. The heart of the scorpion, the rival of Mars, all of it. None of it needs keeping. It was never yours to carry. What stayed, stayed. What slipped away is already on its long, quiet journey back into the dark, the way the star's own light drifts outward and does not return. There is nothing to follow and nothing to keep. Far away, a red coal glows in the warm south, breathing slowly, asking nothing. And here, much closer, your own breath rises and falls, slower now, softer now, sinking toward the place where thinking ends. There is nothing more to see. The sky is full, and it will keep itself. Let the body grow heavy. Let the dark come up around you like warm water. There is no edge to fall from, only deeper rest beneath you, holding you the way space holds its quiet stars. Let go of the last of the light, and now 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.